When my little girl goes to the movie, nobody looks at the screen. 'Cause my little girl looks so groovy, she steals every scene. My little girl gets all the attention when she walks down the street. Gee whiz, she's the center of attraction. My little girl sure is sweet. My little girl sure is neat.
Jerry, you have been singing from the time you were a child. Did you know that music was going to be your destiny, your career?
My mother played piano in a local little church, a rural church. And I loved the music. And I felt the music. And I think I really, at a very young age, knew that I was going to be a professional singer somehow.
Now, your foster dad, Joe Treadway, was responsible for bringing a lot of early stars into West Texas, including Elvis Presley, many others. What was that like for you?
When Elvis Presley came the very first time, I can remember it very vividly, it was incredible. I saw a young man perform, and it literally changed my life.
Now, that was the first night in San Angelo. Was it the second night in Lubbock with Buddy Holly? How did he respond when he heard this stuff?
Buddy was backstage, and all these girls. There was just a rush. They just rushed to the stage, and Buddy said, and this is before he even sang. He said, "That's what I want to do. I like the girls."
Fast forward a little bit. Buddy Holly's become a star, and then he's killed in the plane crash. Tell me about how you heard about that and what your reaction was.
It was devastating. It was absolutely devastating. I was on the radio as a disc jockey, and I was all alone. And the UPI had made a special noise for a headline. I turned around, and there it said, 3 rock and roll stars killed in an airplane crash. I saw Buddy Holly's name, and I just came unglued. I couldn't believe it.
You were asked to step into those shoes, so to speak. Tell me about that.
Well, no one can replace Buddy Holly. Jerry Allison came running over one day and said, "I want you to be lead singer of the Crickets. We've now signed with Liberty Records." And I looked at him and said, "Absolutely not." It scared me to death. Here is Buddy Holly and the Crickets, the #1 group in the world, the first rock band in the world. And I'm going to be the lead singer? Well, I didn't play guitar. And honestly, I thought the fans would come up to me and put a spear through my heart. I wouldn't dare. I was scared to death, so I said no. And a friend of mine nudged me a bit and said, remember, this is the #1 group in the world right now, and you can do it. So I went across, confused and frightened. I went across the street the other way and saw Jerry Allison, and I said, let's talk about this. And a few minutes later, we were putting the contract together, and I became the lead singer of the Crickets.
In your career, you have played with a lot of people who eventually became pretty well known. People like Glenn Campbell and Leon Russell.
So Glenn and I hit it off right away. We wrote some songs together. We did a television show. We became brothers. We became very, very close friends. And an important thing later when I became the lead singer of the Crickets, he was an amazing supporter. Glenn Campbell played guitar and sang harmonies with me on all of the Crickets, post-Buddy Holly Crickets hits. And I cherish those things. Bobby V Meets the Crickets album was the very first album that we did. And it was just amazing. When it was released in the early part of 1962, it just became a viral hit. And all over the world, especially England. England just blew it over the top and went to #1, as a matter of fact. So we were doing a tour in 1962 because we then also had a hit record, Don't Ever Change. And so the tour was unlike anything I'd ever seen. When we arrived at the airport, there were police everywhere. And they were doing a wonderful thing. They were keeping the fans from tearing us apart.
Now, Jerry, when you were in this Bobby V Meet the Crickets tour in the UK, you met a British group that was just getting started and sort of liked your sound. Tell me a little bit about that.
One of the gentlemen, a promotion guy at EMI, our record company in England, came to us and he said, there's a new group that we're thinking about signing. First of all, they asked if they could name themselves the Beatles because of the Crickets, and they played Love Me Do. They just recorded for another label, and we went crazy. It was amazing. The Beatles, when Buddy Holly, just in 1958, was just massively successful, they went into the co-op and paid a few shillings, if you will, to make their own record of That'll Be the Day. Now, fast forward to 1962, when we had Please Don't Ever Change, and they loved that song. So the first thing they performed live on BBC was Don't Ever Change. And so here are two connections. As Buddy Holly is lead singer, and then as I was the lead singer on the other one in 1962, you put those two together, it's a great piece of history and of their anthology.
Now, fast forward a few years. It's 1968. You're in Japan, and somebody approaches you to do something. Tell me about that.
This gentleman came up to me after my show, and he said, tomorrow morning I'm going to take you over to the Taiwanese embassy, and you're going to go to Taiwan. The next thing I knew, I was clearing customs in Taiwan. He was an agent for the Central Intelligence Agency of the United States. And I have no idea why he wanted me to go to Taiwan at that point. And they asked me if I would carry this briefcase. What it was really all about, it was about me eventually, shortly after that, becoming an asset. An asset is an asset for the United States government.
I understand that you had a terrible accident that almost ended your career. Can you tell me about that?
August the 20th, 1982, about noon. And all of a sudden I looked up at the side, and there was a rapidly approaching Mercedes. It hit me right at the broadside at the door, and it crushed my spine. And it compressed the spinal cord. I was temporarily paralyzed. And it took all the way through 2004 to get all that reconstruction done. And then in 2000 was the first time I sang. They said I'd never sing again.
Now, 2 years before that accident, you started getting involved with somebody named Ronald Reagan. Can you tell me about that?
The phone rang one day, and the governor and the other people said, we want you to be a part of this campaign for 1980 for president. We want you to be the National Director of Special Events. Talk about a change of life. This is a change of everything.
Jerry, tell me a little bit about the Rockabilly Foundation. What is it intended to do?
This is a project I wanted to do and I wrote an outline of it back in 1970. And it's to pay tribute to the early Rockabilly legends that changed the world that I worked with, that I started with back in 1953 and 54 and 55. And it was Carl Perkins, Elvis Presley, Johnny Cash, Roy Orbison, Buddy Holly, Jerry Lee Lewis, and these guys needed to be embedded deeply into the hearts of everybody in the world, because they're the ones that started and they're the pioneers of what became really rock and roll.
So now you're in the middle. You've just wrapped this new album. I want you to tell me a little bit about that. But first I want you to tell me about one of the songs, I Still Love You, Peggy Sue. Now I understand Peggy Sue is still part of the scene. And she loves the track? She's heard it?
She heard it, she cried, she called, and she said it's exactly what Buddy Holly would have wanted you to do. Because it's not only a tribute to Buddy Holly, it's a tribute to the song itself, and it's also a tribute to me as the person that the song was written about. And she said Buddy would greatly love this song. Well, that'll be the day when you say goodbye. Yes, that'll be the day when you made me cry. You say you're gonna leave me, you know it's a lie, 'cause that'll be the day when I die. Well, when Cupid shot his dart, he shot it at you hard. So if we ever part, then I'll leave you. You sit and call me baby, and still you tell me maybe that someday, well, I'll be. Well, that'll be the day when you say goodbye. Yes, that'll be the day when you make me cry. You say you're gonna leave me, you know it's a lie, 'cause that'll be the day when I die. Well, that'll be the day. Ooh, that'll be the day. Ooh, that'll be the day. Ooh, that'll be the day when I die.